pestilence, disease, order, rats. These are defining qualities, things under the control of and often influenced by one of my favorite Daedric gods. Hello everybody, it's Spy here, and today I feel like we should talk about Peryite, the god of many things, mostly revolving around disease and pestilence and order amongst the lower ranks of Daedra. This is a divine creature within the universe of Elder Scrolls, and as such, it should be held with some gravity. This specific being seems to often take on the form of a dragon, and its green scales shimmering. Peryite is often regarded as an evil Daedra. However, pestilence and disease, while saddening, definitely have a place within the world that we live in of our own, as well as in Nirn. Peryite is also has his own realm, which are called the Pits. No mortal has ever claimed to have been to the Pits, as it is impossible to enter, and it's often that when people try to go to Peryite's realm, they are thrown into the Deadlands, which is the realm of Mehrunes Dagon. Peryite also has a very important role for those seeking a holy build, or someone of order and virtue. Even though he's an evil god, considered by many, we must all come to the realization that Peryite himself is a being often akin to Akatosh. Now, if this is just some kind of joke or a way to seep into the minds of the holy, we cannot be for sure. However, it is said that Kine, the goddess, the Daedra goddess specifically, gifts the souls of the rats to Peryite. Which means that in some way, Peryite either has good relations with other Daedra and Daedra, or these may just be hearsay. However, I feel like it is important to not underestimate this god. Peryite himself is tasked with one purpose: to guard and protect the lower realms of Oblivion. For what reason is unknown, but we can assume that he has intentions with other gods, and we also know that he is good with, or we also know that he has some level of order. Jiggalag, the god of order, is more rigid and finite in his choice. He is a being of order. However, Peryite doesn't see it the same way as him. Order and chaos are natural things in the world that we live in. However, order has to be maintained in some way, and rigid order often devolves into chaos on its own. The nature of Peryite is one of control and order, not of making everything one. Peryite has many shrines within the world. However, no one can actually decipher where this god had come in. There are very little lore books or references to him in the past, but he does seem to have some semblance of following, and his two main shrines are northeast of Markarth, or in Cyrodiil next to the Silverfish River. It's said that Peryite's worshippers regard him of that of Akatosh. However, when we dig closer, we do see that he is a different being entirely, and in some ways, not always good. Peryite has appeared to mortals in multiple different ways. The main one, as we've already talked about, is the green dragon. The other way is a swarm of rats. He also has the ability to take on a wyrm type of vision, and we do understand a few things about him. However, he's not often talked about when it comes to the lore. Peryite is often the god that we forget about, or that most mortals forget about until they need him. However, Peryite's followers are often booned with disease and pestilence, such as the nature of their god. He has an influence within the world itself, and actually influences all mortals in a small way. If a city becomes overrun with plague, no one goes to the city anymore, and thus, Peryite has a lot of order and control over the people of Nirn as well as the Daedra. Strangely, he is forgotten most of the time, and is not often brought up in discussion about the Daedra. Peryite works to maintain the proper order among the Daedric races, and what I mean by that is the lower races specifically. Peryite's other name is known as the Taskmaster, and this seems to be from where he is gifted the honor of maintaining proper order amongst the lower races of the Daedra. Peryite can often be summoned upon at his shrines by offering him a silver ingot, a deathbell flower, vampire dust, as well as a flawless ruby. For what reason these items specifically pertain to him is unknown. However, his followers are devout in their belief, and they show it with their sickly green visage that they proudly show. They're known for spewing vomit upon the enemy, as well as creating plague just throughout where they stand. Markarth itself has actually been hit with a plague in the time of Skyrim, and underneath, if you go to the lower quarters, you will notice that many people there aren't quite right, and it may lead you upon Peryite. While you're talking to Peryite, you may actually end up with his legendary artifact. His artifact being Spellbreaker. The Spellbreaker itself seems to be of Dwemer origin, and we're not quite sure as to how it came into possession of him specifically. However, what we do know is of its properties, his magical properties specifically. Spellbreaker holds quite a large amount of armor on it by itself, as well as having a very high gold cost. The weight of it is heavy as well. It's not one to be taken lightly, if you get the gist. Its special effects, however, are where it really shines, by reflecting spells backwards at the enemy, quickly. During the Oblivion crisis, the Taskmaster, Peryite, asked the hero of Kavach himself to rescue some of the trapped souls within the Daedric realm of Mehrunes Dagon. Upon successfully doing this, the champion of Cyrodiil was gifted the shield by Peryite. The hero of Daggerfall was claimed to have also held this item within his grasp. However, we do know that Daedric gods are often likely to pull their items out from existence right whenever they're most needed. The tower shield itself has some connection with the Dwemer as stated, but specifically of Clan Rorken, which was located within Hammerfell. This is also a strange connection, seeing as Volendrung, the weapon of Malakath, also came from Hammerfell, and is Dwemer in design as well. During the Blood of the Daedra quest, there are a few bugs that you may encounter that will not allow you to give Spellbreaker to Martin. However, I don't know why you would want to give up such a Daedric artifact anyway. Amongst mortals, he is considered Lord of Pestilence. Among Daedra, he is considered the Taskmaster. This has been Peryite, and now let's discuss what I think of Peryite himself. This is going to get off onto a bit of more of a commentary or an opinion piece here. If you are only here for the lore itself, then this is probably the point in which you may not want to hear it, but I would like to just talk about Peryite in my own experience and what I think about him, and maybe some headcanon as well. If you're interested in that, then I would encourage you to stay and listen for the rest of it. If you have any of your own headcanons on Peryite, or believe something of different than I have said here, please leave it in the comment down below for people to read. Peryite is one of the gods who is not conversated about often. Only people who really play paladin builds, in my opinion, or heavy reflect builds and stuff like that, are the people who really interact with this being, and even then, the Spellbreaker gets outclassed here and there by some other shields, in a lot of the games specifically. So, you know, it's one of those things that I don't know if many people would have even come across him. He's often in locations that are difficult to get to and out of the way from where you may actually be going or whatever. His connection with Mehrunes Dagon is something of, I think, of note. They seem to have some feud specifically, or maybe a difference of where the lines are drawn. And the likeness being akin to Akatosh, I believe, is only a joke. I think it is something to make people less afraid of him. Now, Peryite himself, being considered an evil god, I think is debatable, and I would say that he's probably not evil, such as the world we live in. Our own is plagued and dealing with chaos and order in a repetitious manner. I think it is something that is natural and thus not exactly evil. Peryite seems to have a strange cult-like following, and the people who bring these plagues throughout the areas seem to have no fear in them when they do. I think that has something to do with how he presents himself. He presents himself as a swarm of rats or an aspect of a dragon, two things that are, I would say, either terrifying in the dragon or honorable. And for the rats, something that is overlooked. In the book called The Beggar Prince, we hear of another Daedra using the guise of a beggar to often to allure and entrap people with disease. It's not Peryite specifically, it is of another Daedric god, which we will get into on that god specifically. However, this interaction makes me think that Peryite himself, while being able to control pestilence and disease, is not the only Daedra who can do it. We know that Molag Bal had been able to create the vampires, which is from the disease porphelic hemophilia. Now, if other Daedric gods are able to make and expel other diseases upon the world, what makes Peryite's diseases unique? Well, in the Beggar Prince, as we referenced a minute ago, the other Daedras had need to be on Nirn itself to cause this kind of chaos and wreak this kind of havoc, whereas Peryite is able to pull these plagues and pestilence upon the population without actually being on Nirn itself. I would say that it is safe to say that Peryite's power of plague seems to be one over top of the other Daedric god's ability when it comes to that specifically. He seems to be the main individual who can create and disperse these plagues into a population. And he has more defined roles than other Daedra, and while that makes him seem less powerful, it actually may be his greatest powerhouse itself. And while he is stated to not be as powerful as the other Daedra, it is something that is debatable, seeing as his abilities seem to surpass others in the way of diseases on their own, which is something that can shake up the society. Now, I would say that the kind of people who would seek out, in a role-playing sense, Peryite would be those of Crusader or maybe Dwemer Collector. The idea behind that being that you can rationalize the Serpent, who takes on the form of Akatosh, and also has interactions with Kine or Kinnereth, depending on your interpretation of it. He's a Daedra who has interactions with other Daedra or mimicking other Daedra. That could be something that you could see as valid for a role-playing sense upon someone who is a Paladin, Crusader character, someone who is good, or someone who is collecting Daedric or Dwemer artifacts. Anyone collecting Dwemer artifacts would, of course, need the Spellbreaker to finalize that. And while you may be able to see Peryite as a good character, the people who worship him specifically are unlikely to see him as good. He's his plagues that he brings within the people of his worship are vile, and you can see them throwing it up at you. You can see them making things to entrap people within the plagues that they have. And if you wanted to roleplay a more evil character, Peryite can also fit into that. I would like to say that if you are going to play a Paladin-like character to roleplay, and you decide to go and get the Spellbreaker from Peryite, roleplaying it may be a bit more difficult, depending on which god you specifically worship. If you worship someone like Magnus or Zenithar, you are unlikely to have any real need of Peryite's power. However, Kinnereth and Akatosh, as we've referenced already multiple times, have a closer relationship with the Daedric god himself. And especially Kinnereth, I think, would be the easier one to roleplay, because Kinnereth already is said to have given souls of the rats to him, which makes that seem more holy or natural within the bounds of order itself. I believe that you can debate as well on the natural part of Peryite himself. Is Peryite a natural or good being? It's stated that he is not by many other resources. However, there are very few resources claiming to have met him. The ones who do say have met him often come back with very addled minds and large amounts of diseases. We know that that's not something that we would normally consider good. However, he considers it good in the natural order. It is a debatable thing, I could see, as to if the plagues themselves take on a natural form, or if they are something created to cause issues. There is a debate there on if you believe Peryite is good or evil, I think, and it's not as cut and dry as it may seem from the outset. I would like to say thank you to everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed this lore series on Peryite, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Check out our other pages on Reddit as well as Twitter, where we post things, if you are so inclined to do so. For the question I would like to ask in this video is, what do you all think about Peryite specifically? Is the Taskmaster himself an evil god, or is he one of natural order? And are those conflicting points? Can he be evil and as well as natural? I think there is discussion there, and while we are an Elder Scrolls focused channel, we are about the community, and we would like to hear what you all have to say. Anyway, this has been Spy here, and I think it's about time that I sign out.